It's the largest defence purchase since the ANZAC frigates. The government has signed off on more than $2 billion to buy 4 Poseidon maritime patrol craft from the United States. The Boeing P-8s will replace the Orion fleet, due to come to the end of their operational life in 2025. Wonderful service, 5 decades they've been in the Air Force. Political editor Jane Patterson reports.
The Defence Minister Ron Mark says he used to be sceptical about the Poseidons, but is now convinced they're the best option.
The government has not made this decision lightly. We took the business case back to first principles and questioned and analysed all of the options thoroughly ourselves. We did not rubber stamp the former government's homework. Maintaining maritime patrol capability is essential for New Zealand's national security and for our ability to contribute to global security efforts.
Mr Mark says this will ensure the Defence Force will be able to keep delivering on maritime surveillance, resource protection, humanitarian and disaster response in New Zealand and the region. And he says being able to work closely with the likes of Australia and the United States is important.
Capability interoperability is highlighted as one of those advantages that we should always seek to have. But I've got to say that in going back, I was a P-8 skeptic, put my hand up on that one. But no matter how I looked at this case, the aircraft stacks up on its own, and at the end of the day, it is the only option that delivers all of the capabilities.
The total package will cost $2.3 billion, which includes the aircraft, training systems and supporting infrastructure. Mr Mark was asked if the Poseidons were the most expensive option put before Cabinet.
Commercial confidentiality debars me from actually disclosing the costs of all of the options, of any of the options. But can I say that this is the best option, and in terms of the cost effectiveness of it is the best deal. Let me just put it to you that way, and I wouldn't be assuming that it was the dearest option on an aircraft by aircraft basis. That's all I'll say to you.
Ron Mark says this will mean the Air Force No. 5 squadron will be moved from Whenuapai to Ohakea, and the runway at Whenuapai is one reason.
There's 2 things about the runway. One is that it is too short for the aircraft to take off fully laden and fully fuelled. This is not new, actually. The previous government, it's interesting going back through the documents to see that the previous government was intending moving this capability anyway down to Ohakea. In fact, they were looking at closing Whenuapai. It had something to do with the Prime Minister's electorate, and the decision shifted. But this is actually a continuation of those original plans. The other thing is that these are combat aircraft. They can't be weaponised in Whenuapai because of the level of encroachment now that exists with housing being built right in on the borders. So it makes a lot of sense to have the aircraft relocated, and that's something that the previous government had concluded as well.
The Chief of Defence Force Air Vice Marshal Kevin Short says there will be a lot to do to prepare for the Poseidons.
We're going to have to build hangars and working accommodation. We're going to have to look at the strengthening taxiways and support areas. We have to build a simulator house, so the whole infrastructure for that. We were going to have to do that in Whenuapai regardless, but looking at the length of the runway and the support that we can provide at Ohakea, it's the right place to move them.
He says the recommendation to move was made by a project team.
I mean, something I absolutely believe is the right decision, but we have a project team that presents all the options and the cost of those options, and we accepted their analysis.
Is Whenuapai going to become redundant at some point?
Well, we've still got C-130s, Sea Sprites and Boeing 757s operating there. I think it'll be in operation for decades to come yet, but eventually, if you look at the growth of the population and where the housing is, we will have to look at its safe operation, because we can't extend the runway. That's the biggest issue, the length of runway and the size of aircraft that can operate out of there.
The Poseidons will be delivered and begin operations from 2023. The capital cost will be spread over a number of financial years out to 2026. From Parliament for Checkpoint, Jane Patterson.